My name is Emily, and I used to believe in fairy tales. Once upon a time, I'm not the kind of woman who waits around for a prince. I built my own castle. I worked my way up the corporate ladder in a competitive tech company, and at 30, I was the epitome of success, independence, and ambition. Then I met Tom, my antithesis in many ways, yet someone who seemed like a perfect complement to my life. Tom was charming, kind, hearted, and smart. He had a master's degree in literature, a talent for writing, and an unfortunate streak of bad luck when it came to job hunting. His gentle disposition appealed to me, and before long we were planning our wedding. The dream was so close I could almost touch it. But the nightmare began much earlier than I'd expected, and it started with Carol, Tom's mother. The wedding day arrived, a beautiful morning that should have marked the beginning of a new chapter. As I stepped out of the changing room in my carefully chosen wedding dress, a sleek, modern design that made me feel like a queen, I heard Carol's voice ringing out like a discordant note in what should have been a harmonious symphony. "Emily, are you sure about this dress? It's a bit too showy, don't you think?" Carol eyed me critically, as if I were a piece of art in a gallery she had no intention of appreciating. I looked at Tom, hoping for an ally, a partner, someone who would stand by me. Instead, Tom just chuckled nervously and said, "Mom does have a point. Maybe something more traditional would be better." It felt like a slap in the face. Here was the man I was about to vow my life to, yet he couldn't muster the courage to defend me in the smallest of conflicts. The knot in my stomach tightened, but I pushed it away, attributing it to wedding day jitters. "No, I love this dress," I asserted, trying to keep my voice steady. "It makes me feel beautiful, and isn't that what matters?" Before Carol could retort, one of her friends, Linda, chimed in. "Oh, Carol, let the girl have her day. She looks lovely." Carol made a face, as if she'd swallowed something bitter but had no choice but to digest it. "Fine, it's your day. Do as you please." Despite her words, I could feel Carol's disapproval hang in the air, heavy and inescapable. Tom sensed it too, but chose to remain silent, distancing himself from the brewing tension. At that moment, something broke inside me, a fracture so small, yet so significant that I couldn't repair it, no matter how hard I tried. The celebration went on as planned, but the unspoken words, the covert alliances, and the visible cracks were like invisible ink on our marriage certificate, only becoming clear under the harshest of lights. I walked down the aisle, past the smiling faces of friends and family, my heart a mix of joy and apprehension. As I exchanged vows with Tom, a voice in my head nagged at me. "Is this the partnership you dreamed of? Will he stand by you when life gets tough?" I said I do, but those words echoed in my head, each repetition amplifying the doubt that was slowly creeping into my heart. I glanced at Carol, who wore a victorious smile, as if she'd won a battle I didn't even know I was fighting. That was the ill-fated day when I became Mrs. Emily Harper, sealing my fate with a ring, a dress, and a marriage that had already shown its flaws even before it had a chance to begin. If only I had listened to my gut, perhaps the unfolding disaster could have been averted. But as they say, hindsight is 20/20, and what lay ahead was a road filled with thorns, pitfalls, and lessons learned the hard way. After the wedding, we moved into my house, a 2-story colonial with a touch of modern design. I'd saved for years to afford this place, and it was my sanctuary, a physical representation of my hard work and independence. Tom was captivated by it, or so he said. The entire house was my design, my choice, and a reflection of who I was as a person. Tom's job hunt continued like an endless cycle of hope and rejection. "Don't worry," I assured him daily. "You'll find something soon. I believe in you." He would smile, a tired but hopeful smile and nod. Thanks. You're incredible, you know that, supporting both of us while I figure things out. We're a team, I'd reply, wrapping my arms around him in a comforting embrace. But the team had an invisible third player. Carol, Tom's mother, whose visits became as frequent as the weekly groceries. One afternoon, a couple of months into our marriage, Carol decided to drop by unannounced, yet again. "What a lovely home you have here," she began, her eyes scanning the rooms as if she were a detective looking for clues. "Thank you, Carol. Would you like some tea?" I asked, playing the part of the dutiful daughter-in-law. Ignoring my offer, she continued her visual inspection. "Oh, so you have such a nice house, and you didn't even let Tom contribute. You make it so hard for a man to feel like a man." I clenched my fists, trying to maintain a level of composure. He's my husband, Carol. We're a team. Whatever is mine is also his. Tom sat there, leafing through a job magazine, apparently engrossed but obviously within earshot. Finally, he looked up, and I thought, just maybe, he would stand up for me this time. "He has a point, Mom. Emily worked hard for this house. We're married now. It's our home." For a moment, I felt a glimmer of hope. But then Tom continued, although, maybe we should consider moving somewhere cheaper, so I can contribute too. It might make Mom feel better. My jaw dropped. Was he serious? Feel better? This is our home, Tom. Our marriage. Why does everything have to be about making your mom feel better? Carol grinned, relishing the discord she had sown. "See, Tom, I told you she's too controlling." The room fell silent, the tension as palpable as the setting sun's glow streaming through the windows. My own husband, the man who was supposed to be my partner, had just publicly agreed with his mother that I was controlling because I provided for us. Every inch of the house that had once felt like a sanctuary now felt like a haunting ground. My success, my independence, and my kindness had all been weaponized against me, twisted into flaws by the people who were supposed to be my family. Each room seemed to echo with Carol's disapproving words and Tom's complicit silence. It was a chilling realization knowing that my sanctuary had been infiltrated, that my marriage had become a battlefield and my spouse a potential enemy in disguise. The house remained as it was, walls, floors, ceilings, immutable, but the life within it had changed. What was once a home filled with love and promise had become a haunting house, a setting for a deteriorating marriage and the grim foreshadowing of betrayals yet to come. After that day, I kept my emotions in check, buried under layers of work stress and domestic duties. I was becoming increasingly uncomfortable in my own home, walking on eggshells around Tom and avoiding his mother like the plague. Still, life had to go on. My job was demanding, but rewarding. As a high-ranking executive at a major tech company, I had a substantial income and was able to set aside a decent amount of savings. I had always been financially prudent, setting aside money for our future, thinking that someday we'd use it to buy a bigger house or to travel the world. Couple things, Over the years, my frugality paid off, and my savings account swelled to $400,000. I never kept it a secret from Tom. I believed in financial transparency in a marriage. He knew about the money and where it was kept, and I had no reason to doubt his intentions. That was until one fateful evening when I logged into my bank account to make another deposit. My heart sank as I looked at the screen. $0. The account was empty, every single penny gone. A void filled my chest as I tried to comprehend what had just happened. Tom was in the living room, scrolling through job listings on his laptop. The glow of the screen made his face look more serious than usual. "Tom," I said cautiously, "do you know anything about the missing money in our savings account?" He looked up, his eyes meeting mine, but there was something odd about his gaze. Missing money. What are you talking about? Every single dollar is gone, Tom. $400,000 doesn't just disappear. He closed his laptop and stood up, pacing the room. I have no idea. Maybe it's a bank error or something. Just as we were about to delve deeper into the conversation, the front door burst open, and in came Carol holding a sheaf of property papers like a trophy. Guess what? I just bought a new house for exactly $400,000. Isn't it fantastic? My stomach churned. The timing was too suspicious to be a mere coincidence. You bought a house for $400,000. The exact amount that's missing from my account. Carol chuckled, not even trying to hide her triumphant grin. Oh, it was your money, all right. Tom and I felt it was high time you started contributing to this family. I looked at Tom, my eyes begging for an explanation, a sign that this was some horrible misunderstanding. Instead, he averted his gaze, confirming my worst fears. You knew about this, didn't you? Tom sighed, finally breaking his silence. Look, you make a lot of money, okay? My mom needed a house, and well, you've always said what's yours is mine too. Without even asking me, without even a hint of discussion, I was livid, the walls of my haunting house closing in on me, trapping me in this unbearable reality. It's family, Emily, Carol interjected, and in this family, we prioritize need over greed. Need over greed. I was flabbergasted. This was betrayal of the highest order. Tom had chosen to stand by his mother in an act that didn't just break my trust, but shattered it into a million irretrievable pieces. That was the final straw, the point of no return. I was done being the understanding wife, the generous daughter-in-law, the diligent breadwinner. If they wanted to play dirty, then so could I. As they say, turnabout is fair play, and I was all set to turn their world upside down. So I put on my best poker face and said, "Congratulations, Carol. I hope you enjoy your new home." Little did she know that her joy would be short-lived. I had a plan, a way to reclaim not just my stolen money, but also my dignity, my independence, and my life. They had made their move, and now it was my turn. In this twisted game, I would have the final say, and it would be decisive. I spent the night restless, thinking through my options while Tom snored beside me. It was surreal to think that this man, who had promised to stand by me in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, had conspired with his mother to rob me blind. My mind was a chaotic whirlpool, but amidst the chaos, a plan was taking shape. I went to work as usual the next day, my game face on. With a deep breath, I walked into my lawyer's office during lunch. Sarah was not just an attorney, but also a close friend, someone who had been with me through thick and thin. "Sarah, I need your help," I began, laying out the entire story. Her eyes widened with each revelation, but she listened intently, never interrupting. When I was done, she finally spoke. "Emily, this is severe. If what you're saying is accurate, you have a case not only for divorce, but also for criminal charges against Carol and potentially Tom as well." "I know, and I want to proceed. I can't let them get away with this. We'll need evidence, bank records, communication, everything. And given that a large sum of money is involved, the police will have to be notified." "I understand," I nodded. "Let's do this." By the time I got home, the seeds of my plan had already started to sprout. Sarah was quick, and she'd put things into motion with the bank to trace the unauthorized transactions. Now it was time for the next step. "I've been thinking," I began cautiously, confronting Tom in the living room. "Maybe you and your mom are right. I should be more giving, more understanding of family needs." Tom looked puzzled, but intrigued. "Really, you've changed your mind?" "Yes, I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. I have another savings account, for emergencies. How about we use that to buy you a car? I think it's time. A glint appeared in Tom's eyes, a mix of surprise and something else. Guilt, perhaps. You do that? Of course. We're a team, right? He hesitated for a moment before nodding. Right, a team. It took everything in me not to roll my eyes. Great, I'll need your help to transfer the money. It's a joint action for security reasons. His eyes narrowed, but it was too late to back out now. Sure, when do you want to do it? How about tomorrow? Okay, sounds good. Little did he know that agreeing to this would be his undoing. With the bank already alerted and tracing actions on my account, this new transaction would tie him directly to any unauthorized activities, like the missing $400,000. As I lay in bed that night, the gravity of it all began to weigh on me. I was about to turn in my own husband and his mother to disrupt multiple lives, including my own. But then I remembered the tears I'd shed, the pain I'd endured, and the utter humiliation they'd put me through. No, this was justice. They'd stolen more than money. They'd tried to rob me of my self-worth. Sleep came surprisingly easy that night. For the first time in months, I felt like I had regained some control, and I was going to see this through, no matter the consequences. The sun seemed to shine brighter than usual the next morning, as if the universe was aligning itself with my newfound resolve. I dressed meticulously for work, choosing an outfit that made me feel powerful, like I could take on the world. Today was going to be the day of reckoning. I waited anxiously until the afternoon, long enough to ensure Tom would be awake and idly searching the internet for jobs he'd never apply for. My phone buzzed with a text message from Sarah. All set on this end. We'll be monitoring the account in real time. Go for it. My heart pounded as I dialed Tom's number. Hey, are you ready to do that transfer for the car? Yeah, sure. What do I need to do? He replied, a little too quickly, a little too eagerly. I walked him through the steps, describing where to find the authorization code I had set up earlier with the bank. It was a simple transfer, just a couple thousand from one account to another. But crucially, it required dual verification, and that would leave a digital trail leading straight to Tom. Okay, it's done, Tom said, sounding pleased, maybe even relieved. We really are a team, huh? Yes, we are, I replied, barely able to keep the tremor out of my voice. After hanging up, I took a moment to compose myself, pushing down the rising tide of emotions. This was no time to get sentimental. They had forced my hand, and the die was now cast. Sarah texted me a couple of hours later. Got it. We have all the evidence we need. I'll contact the police. I felt both elated and hollow at the same time. I had done it. I had secured the evidence to prove their treachery. But in doing so, I had also turned my life upside down. I was now on a one-way street with no turning back. When I got home, I found Tom sitting on the sofa, a smug smile on his face. How's my generous wife? Looking forward to our test drive this weekend. Actually, there's been a change of plans, I said, my voice icy calm. The doorbell rang, right on cue. Would you mind getting that? A look of confusion crossed his face as he opened the door to find two police officers standing there. Mr. Thomas Anderson, one of them asked. Yes, that's me, Tom stammered. You're under arrest for unauthorized access and transfer of financial assets, the officer declared, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. The color drained from Tom's face, his eyes widening in disbelief. Then, he looked at me, realizing the trap he'd walked into. Emily, what did you... "It's over, Tom," I interrupted, savoring the moment but feeling an unanticipated pang of sorrow. "I told you we were a team, but every team has its MVP, and let's just say you didn't make the cut." As they escorted him out of my house, the house I had worked so hard to build and maintain, I felt an odd mixture of relief and devastation. My marriage was a sham, my husband a thief, and his mother an even bigger one. But for the first time in years, I was free from their manipulation, deceit, and emotional abuse. Sarah had already begun the legal proceedings for both the criminal case against Carol and Tom, as well as my divorce. The wheels were in motion, grinding inexorably toward justice. But as I stood there alone in the echoing emptiness of my living room, I realized that the sweetest revenge of all was reclaiming my life. And reclaim it I would. Weeks rolled by, a blur of legal jargon, court appearances, and sleepless nights. Despite the emotional toll, I couldn't help but feel an undercurrent of anticipation. I knew that justice was within reach, that the day I had longed for was imminent. Sarah had been meticulous, gathering irrefutable evidence that left both Tom and Carol without an alibi. Finally, the day of the trial came. I sat nervously in the courtroom, my eyes meeting those of Carol and Tom across the room. They looked haggard, the facade of arrogance and entitlement finally shattered. As the proceedings began, my lawyer made our case, presenting evidence of the unauthorized transfers, phone records, and even security footage showing Carol at the bank, possibly meeting an accomplice. Then it was Carol's turn to take the stand. She was a shadow of her former self, but her eyes still held a flicker of defiance. "Mrs. Anderson, did you steal $400,000 from Emily Anderson?" my lawyer Sarah asked pointedly. "I didn't steal anything," Carol spat out. "I'm family. The money was as much mine as it was hers." "So you believe that being family entitles you to take someone's hard-earned money without asking?" Sarah queried, a note of incredulity in her voice. "It was for a good cause, buying a home. Emily has plenty of money. She wouldn't miss it." "Oh, I missed it. All right," I interjected, unable to hold back. The judge gave me a stern look, but I couldn't care less. This was my moment of reckoning, and I would not be silenced. The prosecution then turned its attention to Tom, who looked visibly shaken. "Mr. Anderson, were you aware that your mother took this money from Emily?" After a pause, he mumbled, "I didn't think she'd go through with it." "So you knew about the plan?" Yes," he stuttered, finally breaking. The room seemed to go silent, hanging on this admission of guilt. It was the final nail in the coffin. When the judge pronounced the sentences, I felt a rush of emotions. Carol was found guilty of grand theft and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Tom, as an accomplice, was fined $500,000, more than he could ever afford, ensuring his financial ruin. As the judge slammed the gavel, proclaiming justice served, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. Revenge was indeed a dish best served cold. "Emily," Sarah turned to me as we walked out of courtroom. "You okay?" "I will be," I replied, finally allowing myself a smile. For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. The past is behind me, and the future, well, the future is a blank canvas. And indeed it was. The following months were a whirlwind of changes. The divorce was finalized, leaving me with full ownership of my assets. I dove back into my career with renewed vigor, landing a promotion that relocated me to a new city, a fresh start, in every sense. But before leaving, I made one final visit to the prison where Carol was serving her sentence. I needed closure, a full stop to that chapter of my life. As I stood on the other side of the glass, Looking into the eyes that had once looked down on me, I felt no hatred, only pity. "Was it worth it, Carol?" I asked, my voice tinged with a sorrow I hadn't expected to feel. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of regret. "No," she whispered. "It wasn't." I nodded, turning away without another word. Revenge was sweet, but reclaiming my life was sweeter. And as I walked out into the sunlight, I knew that while the past might shape us, it doesn't define us. I was ready to paint my future